Alright guys, hello, welcome back to the next episode of our Konnersport MyTeam career mode here on F125. Coming off of a great race in Singapore, we got the podium for our driver, Callie Mayer, I believe. Actually, let's go ahead and jump into the results. That way we know for a fact what happened in the last race. Yes, Callie Mayer P3, Aiden Jackson P11. Another race where only one of our drivers has scored points. They're only... what is that, like 17, 18 points apart from each other? I'm not quite sure at the top of my head. But it is Mercedes versus Konnersport for P4 in the driver standings. We're ahead by 8 points. You can see there on the right side for constructor standings. Ferrari leading McLaren, Red Bull tailing behind as Konnersport is leading Mercedes, and then so on and so forth. Williams leading Aston Martin, which that could change by the end of the season depending on R&D, as well as Alpine, Haas, Kicksauber, and Racing Bulls. As we go into performance, I always go on the wrong screen. There's a rivalry between us and Mercedes. I always get to progress history. That's where we need to be. All right, there we have it. Jackson is ahead of Callie Mayer for upgrades. Sitting there behind Mercedes. Callie Mayer is sitting back behind Aston Martin for upgrades. I will try and see about getting upgrades to her this weekend, if possible, as we lead into end game for the season, which as we're going to be transitioning forward through this, we are in end game talks with our drivers that we have that we're in communication with about a possible contract for next season. You guys probably saw in the last episode we spent some money for a contract. That driver has confirmed their seat with us for the next season, so we have one driver confirmed, and we are still waiting on a response for one of the other drivers that we are talking to. So no spoilers there, and if there is going to be a final driver's talk or whatever popping up for the rest of the season, we are going to be cutting it out. So let's go ahead and jump into this engineering facility department. It doesn't really matter because we're in money saving mode for the aero and chassis, I believe. We'll go into that in a second.
Sorry to disturb. Need you for a moment, please, boss?
All right, we're back, and we dealt with the contracts. As far as I know, is if you guys can notice, we covered the money situation to not have a spoiler. So we covered the contract situation. That doesn't mean we signed the contract or we're avoiding a contract. That is for you guys to find out in the preseason episode for season 2. At the time of recording this episode, I'm going to be working on the graphics for season 2. I'm going to be posting the season early on not only my channel in the community tab, but I will also be posting it on my socials such as Instagram and Twitter. So make sure to keep an eye out on those. If you guys wanted to see a little sneak peek of our season 2, and I'll probably put the lineup there as well, but we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, the money marker there, the cover for the money will be there for the duration of the rest of the season, and then we're going to be going, like I said in the past, full on story mode with our season 2 and season 3 and so on and so forth, depending on how far we get into this game, because it is coming up to fall. It's already fall and pretty close to winter, so I'm looking to see at least 3, maybe 4 seasons for this game's life cycle leading into F126, if there is going to be an F126. So we're gonna be leaving those as spoiler free markers, so you guys won't have to worry about that. I'm sure later on it won't be an issue. So let's get to this other engineer department event. All right, sorry for that transition. We had a spoiler warning that we didn't want to show for the rest of the season, so we're gonna go ahead and jump right into these and then finish these guys up. So we will see you guys for the race weekend, as it's the day of practice for COTA.
Welcome to today's sprint. This is shaping up to be another fantastic weekend. We're racing today then in Travis County, Texas, where 20 corners and speeds of up to 200 miles per hour await us on this magnificent racetrack. It's 60% full throttle with plenty of good opportunities to pass, especially through the 2 DRS zones into turn 1 and the long back straight into turn 12. What a race we have in store today. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. What a qualifying yesterday for George Russell. He'll start today's race from pole position. And it's Charles Leclerc in P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Jackson, Fernando Alonso, Oscar Piastri and Hamilton, Norris, Verstappen, Sainz and Yuki Tsunoda, Meyer, Antonelli, Ollie Behrman and Ocon, Albon, Lawson, Lance Stroll and Nico Hülkenberg, Bortoletto, Gasly, Hadjar and Jack Doohan rounds off the grid. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We'll soon find out. And joining me in the commentary box this afternoon, the First Lady of World Motorsports, Naomi Schiff. Well, they say that a change is as good as a rest, and whilst there's not much rest on show in the sprint format today, there's definitely a change to what we're usually seeing on the track. Now, you're the racing driver in this partnership, so tell us about this racing driver. Put us in their shoes. How are they going to be feeling?
It's a very special time for the drivers. It's almost like everything around you slows down and you become hyper-aware. So your nerves slightly go up, your adrenaline's going up. It's the perfect time to start focusing on your visualizations and preparing for the race. So you want to avoid distractions and really stay cool, calm, and focused.
Here we go then. The formation lap is underway ahead of today's sprint. As all the cars take their positions on the grid, the final preparations have been made, and all that's left is for the drivers to deliver on track.
All right, guys, here we are pulling into our grid slot for the COTA sprint weekend. I do have to apologize. I forgot it was a sprint weekend. I apologize about making those earlier cuts, and we've decided to make the rest of the season solely focused on the racing weekends rather than behind the scenes. So I hope you guys will be okay with that, as we have the rest of the cars pulling up to the grid. Here in COTA, 5 red lights are on. We have a new mod installed by Liam14. You can see the timetable there on the left side, the new icons. He actually does make custom timetables for each team for cheap, so I'll be definitely looking at that for Season 2 as we're on board with Jackson. And Sector 1 is basically the hardest part of the track for us. These fast-paced S-curves, a little bit tighter than Silverstone, but we aren't managing for now. We're losing a little bit of ground, not too much. We're still about 3-4 tenths behind Leclerc. Russell leading in the Mercedes as we're being chased down by Alonso yet again, like we were in Singapore. As we see, we lose a lot of ground coming up that hill at the end of Sector 1 as we're in Sector 2 now. This long straight with DRS, you get up to your max RPM really quickly, as DRS won't be active till the next lap. It's going to be a dry race here for the rest of the sprint race, but there's rain on the forecast for the feature race. Don't know if it's going to be full wet, don't know if it's going to be intermediate. We see, I believe that was 4 wide between the Alpines, and I think that was Lawson as well. It's Hülkenberg, Lawson, Gasly, Bortoletto there in the backfield. As we made our move against Leclerc, you guys noticed coming down that straight, we had the momentum as we're pushing now against George Russell. The end of lap 1 already, and we're up into P2, up in the first row, up, still holding on to that podium spot. As we see Kai Mayer now, as we look at some of the other positions, Kai Mayer sitting in P8, and nothing else happening until Sector 2 of lap 2 were Callie Mayer making a move on Alonso. Callie Mayer has a DRS. It's going to be a big DRS train here. But I think the only move, other than Hamilton and Piastri, who are up ahead, are going to be Mayer and Alonso. We have Hulkenberg and Doohan there in the backfield making position changes as well. As, no, Bortoletto and Lawson. So the both V-Carbs, or Racing Bulls, are going to be at the end of the grid here. As we're looking to see how much more ground Callie Mayer can make as she switches position with Alonso. It's P1 to P8 for points in the sprint weekend. You guys know that. But it's going to be the end of lap 2 as we're back on board with Jackson. DRS down the main straight, and we're going to be making a strong move on the outside and outbraking Russell to try to increase that gap. But it is the S's here in COTA that are not our strong suit, so we're going to be tailed by George Russell pretty much the entire time. You can hear his car behind us, you can see him in the mirror, and you can see the timetable, how close he's staying with us as we're coming to the end of this first sector. And like I said, it's not our strong suit. COTA's not a strong suit race for us. As we see the viewing tower in the background, a very good view as we're into Sector 2 now, to see if we can hold off against Leclerc here in Sector 2. We brake late on these corners like we have throughout the season, and it looks like Leclerc's going to be outside of the range. It looks like Russell's going to be dropping down the order. He's marked as a DNF. I believe that's going to be an engine failure, as I didn't notice in the recording until we got to the end of the sector, because he was P3, and I saw him drop out of the timetable during the race, and there's going to be off to the side. No virtual safety car, no issue there. Just a yellow flag in Sector 2, and the race will continue. The gap has increased between us and Leclerc to a 1.8 second gap, 3/10 gap between us, or P2 and P3, between Leclerc and I believe it was Hamilton after that retirement. Now that we're on the final lap, looking to see if Leclerc can make a move on us here on the final lap, coming through the S's. It looks fluent from that camera angle, but like I said, it is not our strong suit, and then I'm planning on keeping it in for the next season. We'll have to wait and see. He makes a dive bomb there, and I believe that's Hamilton actually in P2 with the yellow helmet. Yeah, it's going to be Hamilton trying to make a move on us here in Sector 2 now, as they previously did in Sector 1. They tried to make a move on the inside. You guys saw. We get to pull away a little bit. DRS open for Hamilton and Leclerc trying to catch up behind. And we're going to be doing the same thing that we made the move on Leclerc. We're going to be holding on the outside line as much as possible, outbrake the driver behind us to try to stay ahead. And there's only a few more corners for Hamilton to try to make a move on Aiden Jackson. But as I'm saying Aiden Jackson, this was a surprise. We fought pretty hard for the sprint race. I felt like I did pretty good on the difficulty. That's going to be Aiden Jackson, Konnersport, bringing home the win for Konnersport the first time in this season. But it's going to be a sprint race, so there's not going to be any podium celebration. It's going to be a decent amount of points for the team for the sprint race alone. That's going to be Aiden Jackson. He won.
Well, that's an end to the sprint action. Next up, we'll set the grid for the Grand Prix. So we'll see you next time.
All right, there we have it. Very surprising win for Aiden Jackson. It is a sprint race win, so we unfortunately do not get a podium celebration. That is a big milestone for our team. That is a big milestone for Aiden Jackson. As we take a look at the standings, he's going to be pushing his lead against Callie Mayer. That's also going to help us push our lead against Mercedes with that retirement from George Russell, I believe it was. If we scroll down here, or actually, no, that's the wrong screen. If we look at the race director incidents, yeah, mechanical failure for George Russell. We did do a component change for Aiden Jackson. I believe we talked about it in the last episode. I don't believe we talked about it at the beginning of the episode, if I didn't skip the beginning overall, because we are in late game. End game for the season. So if I skipped the beginning of the video and went right to the race, I do apologize because it was a sprint race weekend. Callie Mayer on the board for points as well, so that's a total of 10 points for our team so far. So we still have that feature race, and it's gonna be a rainy one. So without further ado, let's get our gear back on and get ready for a rainy feature race here in COTA.
Well, you don't need me to remind you that Formula One is now so beloved in the United States that we race here 3 times a year. But let's give respect to COTA, or the Circuit of the Americas, to give it its full name. This place laid the foundations for this moment and still remains the host of the US Grand Prix. It's 10 to the left and 10 to the right. I'm not talking about a line dance, I'm talking about the corners here at the fantastic Circuit of the Americas. Overtaking opportunities into turn 1 and turn 12 at this anti-clockwise 3.6 mile track. But we may well see cars struggle to slow down here today as the wet weather interferes with the low-speed grip. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Lando Norris will lead us away from pole position, and it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Russell, Oscar Piastri, and Mayer, Antonelli, Sainz, Verstappen, and Yuki Tsunoda, Jackson, Hülkenberg, Esteban Ocon, and Fernando Alonso, Gasly, Bortoletto, Alex Albon, and Isaac Hadjar, Stroll, Behrman, Lawson, and Jack Doohan rounds off the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track. And alongside me in the commentary box today, former racing driver herself, Naomi Schiff. I know what we've got to do before the start of today's race, but what about our driver? What do the final hours look like for them?
Well, every driver certainly has their own way of preparing themselves before a race. But I can tell you that pre-race rituals are a real thing. When I was in go-karting, I used to touch every wheel in a specific sequence before I got into the kart. And then I stepped up to cars and had a specific set of fireproof base layers just for race day. So watch the drivers when they're on the grid. Some may be sitting on the floor and isolating, others may be up to other things that they do. But these little things really help their minds get ready for the race.
Right then, the formation lap has started, and I must say the weather conditions aren't the best today for visibility and for grip. As each driver performs this lap, they'll be wanting to settle in and concentrate, as this race, in these conditions, will require a lot of focus. As the cars make their way back to the starting grid to form up and get ready for lights out, let's hope the race ahead today is a thrilling one that will go down as a memorable Grand Prix in the history books.
All right, here we are for the feature race here in COTA. Off of a great sprint win for Jackson. Now we get a grid penalty for another engine component. You guys noticed we are starting behind Callie Mayer in the midfield, pretty much. We're pulling up behind both Red Bulls. It's gonna be full wet weather throughout this race, unless there's gonna be anything to deal with that. Jackson starting P11, 5 red lights are on. And we are off to a decent start. Tsunoda there to the left in P10, Verstappen cutting off to cover his own teammate. We see what looked like a Sauber ahead, Hülkenberg. That was behind us, actually, as we're going to be pushing a few positions on the outside of turn 1. A lot of wiggle room here in turn 1. A couple 3 wides there between both the Williams, Mercedes, and Red Bull. Tsunoda losing positions down to P11 as Mayer's up into P6. Verstappen's up into P7 after that situation there in the first corner. And now we're just basically filing in to see what this rain is going to feel like with how much pressure we're putting on the setup. I forgot to change my differential and stuff like that, so like the ride heights and the brake and throttle pressures. So we're going to be in the dark running a dry setup in the full wet. So we're looking to make a move on Hülkenberg for P10 here on lap 1. We're going to be running in, well, there isn't really a dry line We're going to be pushing on the left side of Hulkenberg through Sector 2. That's going to be an easy position for us. Leclerc passing Piastri. Mayer holding off Verstappen for P6 up ahead. And you guys will be able to hear it throughout the race. We're trying to put the power down, and you can just see the back end kick out with the jolt of the steering wheel. The back end kicking out right there, actually, as we're changing to an overhead view. There it goes again, as we're holding on to our position as of right now, going through the rest of the grid. Alonso P14, Albon P15, Gasly, Bortoletto, Hadjar, Stroll, Behrman, Lawson for the remainder of the grid. And then there's Jack Doohan, of course, that are everybody pretty much after us. Norris leading Hamilton, Piastri P3, Leclerc P4, Russell, Mayer still holding on to P6, Verstappen, Sainz, Antonelli, and then back around to Jackson is our order as we're coming through turn 1 again. Coming down the hill, you see Antonelli hold on to that position against us because we made a wrong move there in turn 1. Stroll getting a position on Hadjar through turn 1 later in the back end of the field. Moving on to the end of lap 2, we're going to be making another attempt on Antonelli here in turn 1. Get the power down. You see how much control we have as we're struggling with this weather. It's going to be a one-stop for majority of the grid, as it has been with how the game is. We make a move on the inside of Antonelli for an easy P9. Mayer switching with, I think it was Verstappen and Mayer switching actually. Mayer is now in P7, and that's Antonelli, Jackson, Sainz, who we're on board with. Sainz, the leading Williams, Albon P15 currently, as he is splitting the two Konnersport cars, and it's going to be a battle between McLaren and Ferrari up front in the top 4. And it's only lap 3. So much has happened already in this race weekend, and we're only in lap 3 of this feature race. Seeing how these cars are handling. I think this is the only time we've had full wets throughout the entire season. So that's definitely a factor to keep this track in for next season. If it's going to be another weathered race like this. We're making a move on Carlos Sainz, pushing the power down and braking late. And you could easily hear us. I hope you guys heard it, that we locked up those tires. And it looks like Antonelli all over the place. It's going to be a retirement for Antonelli. He doesn't know where to go. He's trying to stay clear of the racing line. He pulled it out to the side. And this is going to be an actual virtual safety car. I believe it's the first virtual safety car. Not a full safety car. Not a red flag. A virtual safety car. So everybody is forced to slow down for the duration of time that it takes for that car to despawn and let us get back to racing. Currently P7 is Mayer, P8 is Jackson, so it's a free position. Well, no, we made the move on Jackson made the move on Sainz before that yellow flag or virtual safety car. So we're basically just holding on to the point of waiting for that green flag. So we're already past the point of where Antonelli retired his car, and that's when they give us the green flag, pretty much. We're waiting for that green flag through this sector 3. We're just waiting to see where that timing table drops, that gap between us and Mayer drops, because I know it was a pretty gray area of when they dropped the green flag for us to continue racing, and I think this is it, right into the start of lap 5. We're going to be coming in. Projected lap to come in is lap 14, so we're about 10 laps from now, as we're coming around the final corner. And it's basically going to be like this the whole time. It's going to be a big, long DRS train for a handful. Moving on to lap 7, Tsunoda coming up behind Ocon. I believe this is Sector 2. Yes, it is. Sector 2, Tsunoda's going to be making a move on Ocon. And it's basically going to be the only move that's happened throughout the last few laps, because he's going to have the momentum, he's going to have that toe from Ocon, he's going to be able to make that position on the outside, as Alonso and Albon were almost side by side, as we're still McLaren, Ferrari alternating for the top 4. Russell P5. You can see some of the times have changed. I'm not sure which ones have increased, which ones have decreased. But we're still holding on strong behind Callie Mayer at about half a second or so. Callie Mayer 3 seconds back behind Verstappen in the Red Bull, as we're looking to see what else might happen. Lap 9, we're on board with Jackson. Now he's trying to close that gap. Back end's trying to step out a little bit. You see that racing line forming, not quite enough to dry it out and put some heat, put a little bit of heat in these tires, but it is enough for us to get some grip, put some pressure down on Callie Mayer. We're going to do the same thing that we've done throughout this entire weekend. We're going to wait till the very end of the first corner, make a move on the inside. Sorry for the choppy transitions. It's just, there's nothing we can really do about it. I can look into it definitely, but we made that move on Callie Mayer, turn 1 of lap 10. So not really active before this feature race so far. Lap 14, end of lap 14, we're on board with Piastri, who's going to be the first person to come into the pits. We had to go back through and see who was going to be first, so we went ahead and went over to Piastri coming in first. Norris, Hamilton staying out. That's going to be Leclerc coming in behind it. I believe that's Verstappen and Russell as well. And we're going to be coming in as well on lap 14. So Leclerc, Piastri, Verstappen, Russell, Jackson all coming in for their first set of pit stops. And it's going to be a very slow, very long pit lane here in COTA. We see some of the positions changing just normally. We're going to have an issue there on the rear right. They can't get it off. We're going to be stuck on those jacks for a while. That's going to hurt us in the long run, because we're going to be able to see here within the next lap as we go through the rest of the grid. Everybody else coming in. I don't believe there's any double stops in this race. I mean, Williams could have double stopped. I'm not sure if they did or not. We're going to be to the end of lap 15 now. Norris leading Hamilton by 9/10 of a second. They're going to be coming in for their pit stops. And to avoid these 1 stops, we are going to be installing a 2-stop mod. If I didn't already tell you guys, I will be doing that. I just have to make sure to set a file path and zip that folder in order to use it in the search launcher. If you guys are familiar with the one that I will be using, just let me know. I can send you the zip folder via Discord. So we're on board with Callie Mayer coming in for her pit stop. Onto a new set of wet tires for everybody. The rain is not letting up. We're going to be back in P11 on board with Jackson trying to close the gap on Alonso. Alonso's coming into the pits. Jackson's coming out behind Callie Mayer. That's going to be enough time with that tire issue that we have to overtake Callie Mayer for P7 currently. As we're going through the rest of the drivers on their pit stops. Ocon on the he's on his current lap. He hit last lap. I'm just all over the place. It's just been like this throughout the rest of the season. But Hamilton, lap 16, leading Norris, Piastri, Leclerc. So it's provisionally a double podium for McLaren. Verstappen P5, Russell P6, Mayer, Jackson as we're going through this grid. Lap 16, we're over halfway through. Now we're going to have to push and overtake Callie Mayer. And that's not going to happen till lap 19. But look at this. It's going to be lap 19, a turn 1, late break dive on the inside. Callie Mayer on the inside trying to push it back against us. But we're going to be able to have that power down and make the same move. It's going to be a normal move. Just, it's basically start, finish straight, and the back straight in sector 2 for overtakes. We're going to be on board with Alexander Albon. I was choking. I almost said Ocon. He's going to be following Ocon the end of lap 23. And that's going to be a spin from Esteban Ocon in the Haas. It's going to be the same situation that happened in, I believe, Singapore, where these cars are stopped on track. Everybody's going to be passing them, and it's just going to be a red flag. So, red flag restart late here in COTA for the feature race. Alright, that is a red flag there on the final corner. The time we're recording this, because we are doing the, well, at the time of the recording this, we don't know what happened, but we're going to go ahead and hop into our race strategy and see what we can do here for the remainder of this
we
race.
get a nice advantage here. Let's have a think about how we handle the rest of this race.
Doesn't look like the rain's going to let up, so we're going to have to run another set of wet tires. We have enough fuel for 3.5 laps. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So a 3-lap sprint on wets, same conditions, and yeah, so let's get back to it. Right back into the action, lap 26. It's gonna be a 3-lap sprint to the end. 5 red lights are off. We're off to a good start. We have Russell there on the left side here into turn 1. We have Hamilton leading Piastri, Norris, Verstappen up into P4 against Leclerc. Jackson making a move on Leclerc as we're pushing through the final part of this first corner. A lot of people changing positions downfield or down the grid. That's going to be Lawson, P21, DNF marked off of the restart. We've seen a handful of these throughout the years where you DNF off the restart. He's going to be there off to the right of the incline to turn 1. But we have Hamilton, Norris, Piastri leading this 3-lap sprint to the end of this race. You see the back end still trying to come out on Jackson. Calimere back to P10 after that turn 1 situation. Hulkenberg P9, Russell P8, Sainz P7. So a little bit of a change for positions here as we're coming through sector 2. You see the car going left and right as we're trying to get the grip down. This rain has yet to let up. We went on to a new set of wet tires to be full wets. I'm shocked it was full wets throughout this entire race for this feature race. But it looked like we were on board. I don't know if we were on board with Mayer, but it looked like a DRS wing was open, but that could just be my eyes playing with me. As we're moving back over to Jackson, and at this rate, I'm just hoping for Verstappen and Piastri to battle, as they're already a second behind Norris. Norris is trying to push against Hamilton as we're coming up to the end of lap 26. Only so much can happen here in these last few laps. Nothing can stop the race here on out as we're moving on to the final lap, sector 2, the final lap. Verstappen actually made a move on the McLaren. I forget who it is already. I think it's Piastri earlier at the end of lap 27. We're going to be making a move on Piastri. They're going to be moving to the left side. We're going to be holding on to that right side. You see all the spray coming up from the McLaren from the all that sitting water. We're going to be sitting in a P4 behind Max Verstappen, just outside of that podium for this feature race finish. We just can't spin the car. We're almost to the end of this race as we're holding off the McLaren. That's the Ferrari of, I think that's Leclerc back there. As Aiden Jackson pulls in another chunk of points. I believe Calimere finished in the points as well, but we'll see here at the end of the race, coming through the final 2 corners here in COTA to wrap up the rest of our weekend. Great finish for both of our drivers this weekend. And I can't wait till next race weekend.
And extending his already record-breaking winning record, it's Lewis Hamilton to the line for victory.
Yes, it absolutely was, and what an incredible victory and an important milestone for them as we head into the business end of the season. You know that that's really going to matter from a confidence perspective to get them to the end of the season with potentially even more of these victories.
And it's time for that special moment for our special 3 today. The podium awaits our top 3 finishers. It's a familiar sight in Formula One, and here it is once again. Lewis Hamilton with the trophy held high, celebrating a masterful victory. Well, what an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
All right, there we have it. A feature race result worth remembering. Lewis Hamilton getting another win. I don't know if he's gotten a win all season, but we can definitely take a look later on in the next episode behind the scenes. As we're going to be cutting I decided during this race, we're going to be cutting our videos short. We're just going to be doing the race weekends. We're not going to do anything behind the scenes to avoid any spoilers from here on out. I know I said that between the sprint, at the end of the sprint race, but that's what we're going to be doing. But decent amount of points for our team today. We have 20 points from Jackson and 3 points. So total of 23 points on the weekend for Konnersport. And we waited for that opportunity between Oscar and Max, but we couldn't get P3. But we started in P11 and moved up to P4. Gallimer started P6, dropped to P10 from this race. Virtual safety car. I think it was the first virtual safety car that we've had all season long. And then we had a red flag there at the end, towards the end from Liam Lawson there on the restart. No, there was a spin, but you guys saw it earlier in this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know I did, and we'll see you guys in the next one.